Our speaker this evening is Brian Lambert, and he's going to be speaking to us about the Theresa Foundation. Brian Lambert is a member of the board of directors of the Theresa Foundation. He graduated with an engineering degree from McGill and an MBA from Concordia in the 70s and 80s, and spent more than 40 years working for a Japanese multinational trading firm, serving as vice president of Sumitomo Canada Limited before retiring 2 years ago, just in time for COVID. During that time, he served as president of the Quebec-Japan Business Forum and the Canadian Association of Railway Suppliers. He's lived in Westmount with his wife, Merla, for almost 40 years, where they've raised 2 kids and now have a grandson. Congratulations. Established in 2007, the Theresa Foundation is a registered charity based in Montreal, devoted to meeting the needs and improving the lives of grandmothers and orphan children of AIDS victims in the village of Mnjale, Malawi, and its surrounding communities. Brian Lambert is the treasurer of the Theresa Foundation and the son of its founder, Theresa Lambert. He's also a past president of several industry associations, and he's currently on the board of the Canadian Railway Club and La Traversée des Laurentides. Brian, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us this evening about the Theresa Foundation. And the screen or the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Susan. Hi, everybody. If anybody's wondering why my upper lip looks a little bit dirty, this is day 3 of Movember. And if you're not familiar with Movember, I'm growing a mustache to remind everybody how important it is to fight prostate cancer. I have 3 buddies who got it this year, so it prompted me to grow this silly mustache on my upper lip. As Susan mentioned, the Theresa Foundation is it's a family foundation. It's run by the children and grandchildren of Therese Lambert, actually. Lambert and Lambert it's kind of a bilingual name, and in our case it's Lambert. My dad was an Anglophone Montrealer. The foundation has been working in Africa now. I just calculated, it's like we've been there for 15 years already. Time flies when you're having fun, and I really do appreciate, we all do appreciate you giving us this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the work that we do. Now, the Rotary Club is very well known, but I looked it up on Wikipedia anyway, and this is what Wikipedia has to say. Rotary International is an international service organization whose stated purpose is to bring together business and professional leaders, you guys, in order to provide humanitarian service and advance goodwill and peace around the world. It's non-political and non-religious, and membership is by invitation and based on various social factors. There are over 35,000 member clubs worldwide and a membership of 1.2 million individuals known as Rotarians. So like, wow, 35,000 chapters and 1.2 million members. That's pretty amazing. I also took a look at the Westmount Rotary's activities. I'm very impressed. It's interesting how you guys managed to balance local issues with international issues. I also saw that you have a pretty impressive lineup of past speakers and future speakers. I'll try to meet your expectations. I also surfed Facebook and the internet to learn about the activities of Rotary in Africa and especially Malawi. You guys are doing good work all over the world. My conclusion is that the participants on this Zoom presentation want to help make the world a better place. You're my kind of people. Now I'm going to try to share a PowerPoint. Wish me luck. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Good.
Okay. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Theresa Foundation. I would describe the Theresa Foundation as a micro charity. We can all make a difference in the world. And one woman who made a difference was my mom, Therese Lambert. I don't have time to tell you all about the work she did to help people, especially spouses and children of alcoholics during her life. But at 80 years old, she started the West Hill Grannies group of the Stephen Lewis Foundation in 2002 and began raising funds for its granny groups in Southern Africa. She attended conferences. She went to Parliament Hill in a wheelchair to protest defunding of HIV/AIDS support. She talked to anybody who would listen. My niece remembers pushing her wheelchair up Parliament Hill, watching her protest on St. Catherine Street in front of Mark Galno's office in the rain, and attending a lot of teas and luncheons and game night fundraisers. Now, the Stephen Lewis Foundation is amazing, and they do great work, but she wanted to be more targeted. Fortunately, Roger Room, who's on this call, a family friend, was posted in Malawi at the time with the Canadian International Development Agency. And in 2007, she asked him to find a village that she could support through more direct means. So Roger sent out a call and screened about 100 applications, and eventually he found a small community in Mnjale, not too far from the capital, Lilongwe, of grandmothers raising their AIDS orphaned grandchildren. They had at that point been granted some land for crops, and a youth brigade had been organized to take care of the harvest, but they needed more help. So the process became Roger asked them what their needs are. We raised the funds, mainly through theater and benefits. I'll talk about that later. And we sent money directly to Roger, every penny, for the grandmothers. That worked pretty well. The village arranged for the organization to be formally recognized by the Malawian government as the Theresa Foundation in honor of Therese Lambert. Okay, maybe they rode the coattails of Mother Teresa. Anyway, a side note, our foundation is formally recognized by the Canada Revenue Agency as La Fondation Therese Bourque Lambert, but informally as the Theresa Foundation. Now, unfortunately, the CEDA office in Malawi was closed in 2009 and Roger was forced to leave. Now, this is a huge challenge because we relied on him to supervise the delivery of services to the village, as well as financial oversight. Fortunately, before he left, Roger was able to find the Missionary Sisters of Immaculate Conception, which is actually a Quebec-based order of nuns who, by the way, have been doing amazing work all over the world for 120 years. Eventually, Roger's role was taken over by Sœur Gisèle de Duc, a Quebecoise nun living in Lilongwe, the capital of Malawi. And the MIC continues to be an essential partner in our work to this day. So my mom passed away in 2011. And so her children and grandchildren have done their best to continue her work. One important step was recognition as a charity by the Canada Revenue Agency in 2016. It was a lot of hard work, but we were determined. Africa has been devastated by HIV and AIDS. The Stephen Lewis Foundation and the Theresa Foundation, sorry to mention the two names in the same sentence, are both dealing with the same issue. Grandmothers raising grandchildren because the moms and dads have died from AIDS. Here's a great drawing by a Montreal favorite, Aislinn from the Gazette. Terry Mosher was kind enough to allow my mom to use this image in her fundraising. The Theresa Foundation cannot address the cause, but we are trying to help those grannies and kids. Fast forward to today. What is the situation in Malawi? You know, there's about 18 million people living in Malawi, which is roughly half of Canada's population. In 2016, which is the latest date I could find the statistic, 63,000 Canadians had HIV/AIDS. So the prevalence in Malawi is, by my calculations, 35 times higher. In addition, it strikes women, moms, to a much larger extent in Malawi. Unfortunately, even today, Malawi is still one of the highest HIV/AIDS prevalence in the world. Now, why is the Theresa Foundation in Malawi? we chose to address the needs of a specific village, Mnjale. I guess there are hundreds, if not thousands, of villages like Mnjale in Africa. In fact, since then, we have expanded our work to serve 2 neighboring villages, Fuse and Chulundu. As I mentioned earlier, my mom chose a village in Malawi simply because someone she trusted, Roger, was working there for SIDA. But on the other hand, Malawi is very interesting. It's a former British protectorate, used to be called Nyasa land, and it gained independence in 1964, but it's one of the poorest countries on the planet. It does not enjoy the benefits of natural resources, and its population relies mainly on subsistence agriculture and foreign aid. Here's a map to help you locate Malawi in Africa. It's slightly south of the equator, so now they are entering the planting season. Now, lots of people confuse Malawi with Mali, but one big difference is peace. Malawi is a very peaceful country and has earned the nickname the warm heart of Africa. I personally was surprised to learn that there are about 40,000 refugees from neighboring countries in Malawi right now, despite its poverty. I think this shows how a peaceful country can be very attractive, even if it's so poor. The original raison d'etre for my 80-year-old mom was to help the grannies, and it's still our priority today. The life expectancy in Malawi is only 55 years. So we do focus on their health, nutrition, and comfort. Some of the things that we do are very simple, such as providing roofing materials or blankets or chitenjes, so the grannies can be warm and dry. Nighttime low temperatures in Mnjale can be as low as 5 degrees centigrade. The grannies sleep on mats in simple huts and really appreciate a warm blanket. We also provide seeds and fertilizer every year to the community, and the grannies are assisted with their plots by younger members of the community. Supplying fertilizer is currently our single biggest line item in the annual budget. In case of a poor harvest, we have provided additional maize. With the support of the Vanier College nurses, we arrange a mobile clinic in the village in the spring, although this year was not possible due to COVID. We have partnered with a local hospital so the grannies can get medical treatment when there is something more serious. Speaking of COVID, we're very happy to say that the grannies and other vulnerable members of the villages received their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. This became available from the Malawi government, and the foundation only really needed to arrange transportation. Their second dose is scheduled for December. The orphans benefit from many of the same things as the grannies, of course. The building in the background is the community center that was built by the foundation. The playground for the children was also provided by the foundation. In addition, we have set up a kindergarten in the community center, and we have also arranged for a protein supplement to be fed to the children to prevent malnutrition. Now, primary school education is provided by the government, but secondary school education is not. So we have been paying for secondary school education for many years. Our priority has been to educate girls, but we have recently accepted some boys. These young people often come from troubled homes, and as a result, we have found that a boarding school is a good solution. From time to time, we have partnered with other Montreal-based charitable organizations to send badly needed items by container, such as bicycles and clothing. Finally, let's not forget fun. We organize an annual Christmas party for the grannies, and we've organized trips to beautiful Lake Malawi for the grannies. We also organized a trip to the local game preserve, and the orphans were chaperoned by the secondary school students. I was also surprised to learn that there are at least 3 other groups just here in Montreal that work to help Malawi. One group that's very important, I mentioned already, is the Vanier Nursing Exchange, and they send nursing students every year, COVID permitting. They visit our village to provide checkups and medicine as required. Our most important partner is the Missionary Sisters of the Immaculate Conception, MIC. This religious order is headquartered here in Montreal, and we were so lucky to find them when the CEDA office was closed in 2009. For many years, our agent in Malawi was Serge Giselle de Duc. She did an amazing job, but I mean, she was over 80 herself, and finally she retired from overseas work and is back in Montreal. She was replaced by Sir Andrea Rabaca, super energetic and wonderful woman, very creative, and this is why we can be a success in Malawi. Now, our budget is very modest, since we only deal with the needs of 3 small villages. As a result, we've been able to meet our funding needs mainly from 2 fundraising events annually. For many years, our springtime fundraiser was a student theater piece at Dawson College. Now, my sister was a teacher at Dawson and ran the Dawson Theater Collective until she retired. Since her retirement, we have raised funds in the springtime by participating as a team in the Scotiabank Charity Challenge Run. Our autumn fundraiser is a concert. My mom started the first benefit concert in November 2010, and we have had a really fun event annually featuring amateur and professional musicians, singers and dancers, complemented by a silent auction and a We're also very fortunate to have a number of foundations and organizations that supported us through donations. Now, the COVID pandemic has been a challenge both on the fundraising side of things and on our ability to deliver to the villages. Fortunately, we had already transitioned our spring fundraiser from a theater production to a fun run when COVID hit. Nevertheless, like most races, we had to shift to a virtual run, but this has allowed us to be quite flexible with dates, and we were pleasantly surprised that support from our donors was very strong. The big challenge was our fall benefit, which went online in 2020. We had to go all donation, but once again, we were impressed with the donor support and surpassed our fundraising goals. Our benefit was live streamed broadcast on Facebook, and it featured recorded performances. One unexpected benefit was that we could broaden our viewership, since anyone in the world could watch it live, and those who couldn't were able to watch it as a recorded version at their convenience. And then on the performer side, we were able to complement our usual Montreal-based performers with performers from Europe and Malawi. Our 2021 benefit will be virtual again and is scheduled for Friday, November 26th. On the other side of the ocean, COVID was a challenge since it handicapped our efforts to deliver to the villages. Travel was restricted, so we could not bring things to the villages easily. The Vanier Nursing Exchange was canceled, understandably. Secondary schooling was impacted in a similar way to the impact in North America. Now the village has had their first dose of AstraZeneca. The second dose is scheduled for December, so there is light at the end of the tunnel. As the Rotary Club members know very well, there are so many generous people here in Montreal. The Theresa Foundation has a strong community of friends and family who have supported us through the past decade or more. Our main challenge at this time is satisfactory delivering on our commitment to the people of the 3 villages that we support. Malawi is far away. Although we have a great partner in the MIC, they are helping us from the goodness of their hearts. And even they are an hour drive from the village. There's also a language barrier, although the sisters are doing their best to learn the local language, Chichewa. We also have a duty to our donors to ensure that the precious dollars that they donate are being spent on the products and services that we have promised. We also have an obligation to the Canadian taxpayer, since they are supporting the foundation since we started issuing income tax receipts a few years ago. We're always looking for alliances with like-minded organizations who can help us to improve governance and oversight in Malawi. It's sometimes frustrating to be so far away. Now, if you're interested in the work that we do, I invite you to sign up for our email communication on our website, www.theresafoundation.com, or go to our Facebook page. I would also invite you to watch the November 26th benefit, either live or recorded. It's a lot of fun. Needless to say, a donation is very welcome. The foundation in Canada is all volunteers, and 95% of the money raised here in Canada is sent to Malawi. A dollar goes a long way over there. If you know of someone who might be interested in our work, please spread the word to them. We're also very interested in partnering with any organization who is working in Malawi. As a micro charity, we really need help. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. I've also asked Emma, who's the president of the foundation, and Roger Room, who was in Malawi at the very beginning, to join me on this Zoom, and they'll be able to provide complimentary information. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. We are open for questions, and Jim Ferris has one that he put in the chat box. Is your work still concentrated on AIDS, HIV victims, or more with the local population as a whole?
Good question, Jim. Basically, the whole local population as a whole is affected by HIV, AIDS in one way or another. So I guess the answer is both.
To add to that, definitely our efforts are focused on the grannies and the orphans. And as we said, like they're the children that we send to secondary school, but there are a host of other people that benefit from the farming programs that we have and the food distribution through the maize. But the real focus is on the grannies who are still raising their grandchildren, because that missing generation.
How many people are in the 3 villages that you're dealing with?
It's a good question. I think it's about 300 or so, if I'm not mistaken. Roger, is that your recollection too?
I've never known the numbers in the other 2 communities, but that makes sense for Mnjale. Yeah.
There's about 75 what we call grannies. Official card carrying grannies of that 300, and of course a lot of kids, right? I think the average population in Malawi is like 18 years old or something like that.
So everybody knows everybody.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, so the organization was established in 2007, and you are supporting children going into secondary school. Have you seen any of them move even farther into university?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not something we've seen. A lot of they're girls. There's a couple of boys, young men that we support, but usually they finish their schooling and they don't continue on, and that's something that we definitely want to help them continue if possible, but so far that hasn't been the case, that they've wanted to continue on to university or sought our support to do so.
Are they able to enter the workforce, or once they stop their education, they return to the home?
Some of them, so a lot of the girls that, a lot of them do, I think, return to the home. I think some of them get married, and then that's what happens in their culture, that they are expected, or they get married. And but yeah, I can't specifically, I don't have the data in front of me right now of what they eventually do afterwards, but yes, some of them do return to the home and don't continue on, unfortunately.
Okay.
Also, I would just add to that that an awful lot of the employment in Malawi is in the informal sector anyway, and so while there's some we might, for example, if someone got a job in some company and had moved into the city, we might hear about that. But if they're selling things nearby in the village, it's is it employment or is it not? But they're feeding their family, and if they're doing it with numeracy and literacy skills, they're doing it better.
Okay, I don't want to monopolize. I do have more questions, but I just want to see if anyone else has any questions at this point. Here we go, Jim. Yes, please.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, here we go again. The reason that you're there, the reason that you ended up there originally was because of the HIV/AIDS issues and the troubles that it was causing for the community. My question would be now, as this many years later, almost 15 years later, I guess, is the incidence of HIV in these communities, has it dropped at all? Has there been, I know that's not your focus. Your focus is to help them survive, but has there been any learning or any improvement in the incidence of HIV in these three communities?
Roger, you want to take that on?
Well, again, I don't have exact data, but I would say that the overall precedence of occurrence of HIV/AIDS in the population in Malawi has diminished probably since 2007. But Brian referenced the figures that do prevail still, and certainly compared to Canada, I mean, HIV/AIDS has almost fallen off the radar in North America and Europe, except for the smaller numbers of people who, in our case, can be followed and have the proper medications and live quite almost normal lives and almost normal life expectancies now. Malawi, in fact, was the first country in Africa, almost the poorest country in Africa, and was the first country in Africa to make antiretrovirals available broadly in society. But that was 2007, 2008, 2009. And of course, the rural poor are often left out of anything like that. And also in some cases, people die before they get any kind of medical attention because they don't know that it's AIDS that they have. But when you get a young man dying and 2 or 3 years later his wife dying and children left over, you don't need to do a postmortem to figure out what happened. And so the numbers they're still high in rural communities.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. We have a question from Dawn. What is school population directly assisted? So I think that is, which school population is directly assisted?
So I can take that on. As I mentioned, we're a micro charity, and our budget's very limited. Schooling is important, but it's only one of the things we do. So as a result, our budget is, we have to decide where to distribute the money. So right now we support. I would, to be quite frank, before COVID. Okay, before COVID, we were supporting 15 students in secondary school, as I mentioned, boarding school. Now, COVID has been a nightmare, as you know, and we're probably down to 8 or 10 at this moment in time. We obviously want to get back up to normal when things are normal.
For boarding school, they'd be going out of the villages and into a larger town?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The secondary school that we send them to is called Bianzi Secondary School, and it is outside of the village of Mnjale. It's closer to Lilongwe.
Okay. But still in a relatively small area, so they don't really make the jump to the big city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say a quick hello to Anne Lambert, who joined us a few minutes ago. So welcome, Anne. That's her waving there. And Emma has put up a few links in the chat box. So she's put the URL for the Theresa Foundation up there and also the Facebook group URL. So please check that out. Do we have any other questions?
I would, Susan, I would just mention, I'm glad that Anne could join because she was in Mnjale just a few short years ago with her family, visiting the village, her husband and son and daughter, and so she's got actually the most how can I say current experience in the village, and she can tell us stories that may be of interest to all of you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I have just asked Anne if she would mind saying a few words and giving us a little bit about what you found when you went there a few years ago.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. I was there in 2015, so 6 years ago. And what I found was we visited our 3 villages, Mnjale, Fuzu, and Shilundu, and we met the grandmothers, and we met the various headmen and the committee members and a lot of the kids in the kindergarten. And it was it's pretty hard to describe that experience briefly, but it was an extraordinarily moving and powerful experience for us. We were both, I think, honestly quite shocked at the poverty in the village. For somebody who comes from Canada, it was quite a sight to see children who were suffering the effects of kwashiorkor.
Protein deficiency, yeah.
And so we immediately, redoubled our efforts to make sure that the protein supplement that the children receive at our kindergarten, that's in the building right behind my brother's head, in the community center named for our mother. We made sure that protein supplement, went to the kids, because we just didn't ever want to see that again. But we were amazed at the resilience of the people there. My son immediately we brought some soccer balls over with us. He immediately got a soccer game going. That's kind of, soccer's kind of, they say music's the universal language. I think for boys, soccer might be. The girls, played kind of, I forget what that's called, with the ball sort of swinging on a rope. I can't remember what it's called.
Tetherball?
Tetherball, that's it. The girls were very into that. They don't play soccer. We were struck by, the simplicity of what they ate. The diet is quite limited, I think, for most people there. But, we were really gratified to see that the crops, we had a good year that year, that things were growing well, that the community center was up, that it was used, that it was an absolutely integral part of the village, that it was a very, very important hub and meeting place. And that, what struck me more than anything in some ways, that my mother, who started I don't know, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of this. I was in another meeting, but my mother, who started this foundation with $400 playing games at her senior center, her apartment building, which was for seniors, created this extraordinary foundation that does this work with a very small budget, but I think makes some, sort of life-changing, has some life-changing effects for these people and for us too over here. So that was really amazing to me to see what really, what can be done when you just put your mind to it. But I've noticed from some of the photos that have been sent this week, I was quite surprised to see the community center, I think, really, really needs some work. Like,
yeah,
it's there's
seems
a
to
lot
have been like an earthquake. There's a big crack in it.
It almost
Yeah.
looks like there was an earthquake. I think it's just, that it's very hard to maintain some of these buildings, and even you can see it behind Brian, that the the playground equipment, that also was already in need of repair. And it's also a lot of kids. We have 90 kids in our kindergarten. They play hard, they go hard. Our community center is used as a storage place, as a meeting place, as a clinic when we work with the Vanier nursing program to do our mobile clinic in the spring. So, you know, it looks to me like that's one of our urgent things that needs work. If I had to just looking at those photos today. But yeah, so our experience there was just wonderful, and we were so well welcomed, and we realized how much work there. I think it was sort of like so many experiences like that. It was like wonderful to meet these people, to actually be and smell and feel and taste the place that we had kind of dreamed about. But on the other hand, we realized how much work there was to be done. You know, it's just, it can be quite daunting sometimes, but of course worth it. So I hope that's kind of, I mean, there's so much to tell. And I actually wrote an article about it. If you like, I wrote an article about our experience for, I think it was for the Senior Times, and I think it's on our website. And it might well be worth, if anybody's interested, to read that article, because it really gives a much more in-depth overview of our visit, and also, you know, what it was like to drive down the highway and see mice on a skewer for sale at the side of the road as soon as we arrived from the airport, and realized that that was one of the proteins that people eat there. And, you know, much more sort of anecdotal stories about our visit to Malawi.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. If there are no more questions, for some reason, I want to ask you, do the teachers or even the students have any access to technology? Computers?
At the community center, no. At ours, it's too remote. But actually, it's funny you should say, because through my father, he's made a contact who also has it's a charity in England, but not yet in Canada, where they provide some sort of, maybe Dad, you could explain it better, but like a box that provides Wi-Fi, and you could bring it to certain schools. So he's currently now in Malawi, and we're going to meet with him when he gets back and pick his brain about that.
Amazing. Any other questions? Well, I have the pleasure of thanking all of you, actually, Brian and your wonderful backups for taking the time to explain the Theresa Foundation. And you've called it a micro foundation, but really, I think we all know that the effects are macro. The way that you impact the lives of these people, especially because you're focusing on these 3 communities, these 3 villages. And we can really see the courage and commitment that kind of blossomed from your mom's efforts. So thank you. It's inspiring. Thank you for your kind words regarding Rotary. Our motto is service above self, and all of you embody that, really. You know, when you said that we're your kind of people, well, you're our kind of people. So thank you very much, Brian, and everyone else.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we can stop the